everyone. It's Alicia, and welcome back to the E to Me podcast. It's wild because I had a recorded podcast that was supposed to be set for today, but something happened with the sound, and so I am now hopping on to provide an episode for this week. So bummed that that actual recording didn't come together, but I'm actually excited to come to you guys today solo. Uh, I'm happy to be here with you all, but the message or the information I'm sharing is coming, with like a heavy heart. Today is Sunday, September 28th, and if you haven't been, if you haven't heard this news, there was a shooting, a mass shooting um, at a church, a Mormon church in Michigan today, this morning. I think it's like around 10 o'clock or so. Uh, at the time, and obviously we'll probably know more by the time you guys hear this or see this on YouTube. We'll probably have more information, or hopefully we'll have more information about what happened. But it's wild. So there was a mass shooting at this church in Michigan. Uh, it's southwest of Flint, and the concern is that there may be more victims than what has been shared. Uh, Not only did the perpetrator go in and shoot folks, uh, he ran his car into the church, and then also that church was set afire. And obviously, you know, this was done by the perpetrator as well. Um, it's wild because when we are hearing all this information, you know what I'm saying? And trying to find places where safety is, where you would think safety would be, you start questioning, where can we go to find refuge, to feel safe, to feel supported, especially for those who are, religious folks that attend, church. Um, that's the last thing you're thinking about is your house of worship being affected by gun violence in this way. I mean, you would also argue, right? Like that you would think schools where we send our most vulnerable, our children, the hope is that that wouldn't happen there either. But, clearly we are still struggling with maintaining some type of decent gun laws here in this country. And we continue to see this violence go beyond the school setting. And now we're seeing it more so. And what's wild is we're seeing it in churches that traditionally aren't Black churches, because that's where, you know, from what I have seen and historically, a lot of the churches that have been that have fallen victim to gun violence have been churches of Black folks. So this is really interesting that this Mormon church, well, that's much interesting. It's just kind of like, what is going on, right? Like, what was the motive, right? When we don't know any of that, all this information is new. This happened today. So I have an article from the New York Times, and it's basically just the live updates of this actual um, incident. So the title of this article is Live Updates, at least one dead, 9 wounded in Michigan Mormon church shooting. So the article starts off, it says, the police said they believe a gunman intentionally set fire to the church in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, southwest of Flint, and that more victims may still be inside. It said officers shot and killed the attacker. And that's just the start of the article. So the latest information, this was 14 minutes ago here, like I said, today, September 28th, and right now it's roughly 2:02 p.m. So 14 minutes ago, what we know is a man drove his vehicle into a Michigan church and then opened fire, killing at least one person, investigators said. At least 10 people were shot, and Investigators believe that gunmen set fire to the church before dying in exchange of gunfire with officers. Investigators believe more victims may still be inside the structure, a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints building in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. Hundreds of people were inside attending service at the time, according to the local police chief, William Rain. The fire has been extinguished, said Chief Rain, or Rene, could be, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, Rene, I think, told reporters, we do believe that we will find additional victims once we have the scene secure. Investigators did not release the identity of the gunman or describe a possible motive for the shooting at the church, about 7 miles of Flint. Chief Rene said additional information would be released later. And so, it's never good to hear this type of information. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, I mean, I've said this several times. I don't know if I've said this so much on the podcast. I do different postings on social media, but when it comes to gun reform, y'all, it's like, what is it going to take here in this country? Like, seriously, what is it going to take? And in my opinion, I feel like a lot of this pseudo security and having some type of firearm in this country is just a means to just invoke things like racism and an attempt to feel like superior or whatever by way of having these firearms in the event that someone who is you know has tons of ammo. And I'm not talking about someone who has like maybe one gun or whatever. Maybe if you're a hunter, fine, right? That whatever. But when you have like tons and tons of ammunition, that's concerning to me. AR-14, is it AR-15 or AR-15 rifles and things of that nature. What do you need that for in your home? Like, what do you need that type of ammunition for? It just it doesn't make any sense to me. Like I said, at what point are we going to recognize that this um, way of managing or dealing with um, gun control and gun laws is not working, right? America is the wild, wild west, as far as I'm concerned. It's just every man for himself out here. And, it's just getting worse and worse. Like nothing appears safe in this country when it comes to stuff like this. And being in social settings, a house of worship, you're susceptible to being injured or killed or traumatized because someone has taken it upon themselves to come into this church and wreak havoc in such a way. I mean, we don't know the motives, but there's no excuse. I'm sorry, there's no excuse for someone to come into a church and do that to a group of people. There's just no excuse in my opinion. I just don't know where this country thinks it's going to be headed to if we continue on this path. This is so destructive. It's so ridiculous. And you have children, you know what I'm saying? Like you have children in these congregations. And this whole idea of this country being for the children and we're so concerned about the children and trans people and these LGBTQ folks coming in and infiltrating our children, and we can't have that. But you can have guns though. There's no problem with the guns, right? There's no issue with a weapon that could take the life of your child, right? That no issue at all. No reason to uh be up in arms about that. Meanwhile, I was talking to someone and it was funny. We were actually cracking up laughing about this. And they were saying, um, they're from Indiana. And they're like, I'm just going to be honest. I can't tell you the last time I came in contact with a trans person. And they were like, maybe I did and I just didn't realize it. But it doesn't even matter because I'm not, like, it's not like it's in my face all the time. It's like it's what the media has been spewing and making folks think and feel like this is such a huge attack on our young people and on our country, and we must fight back, and we can't have these trans folks, in our spaces infiltrating whatever, right? Meanwhile, you have guns, in abundance, people dying at the hands of people who clearly have mental illness, no regulations on how to manage or navigate this weaponry, but it's not an issue, right? It's not an issue. It's crazy to me. But here's some other information that is in the article. And so it says, here's what to know. It was a sudden attack. The shooting happened just before 10:30 a.m., investigators said. Paul Kirby, who was inside the church at the time, said he heard what sounded like an explosion, then saw a man get out of his truck and open fire with a rifle. My God. A bullet went through the glass door beside him, and a piece of shrapnel hit his leg before he ran inside to find his family and get them away from the scene. The scariest thing I've ever been I was no, the scaredest I've ever been, he said. I'm sorry. The investigations, what goes on to talk about the investigation. So the FBI agents are on the scene, according to the Bureau's director, Kash Patel. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives said its Flint field office had also responded. We believe that we have the guy who did this, Chief Renee said. And these are Trump's comments. In the social media post, President Trump urged everyone to pray for the victims and said that the epidemic of violence in this country must end. And what's really cool about this particular article, and I'll share it in the show notes, is that it's constantly updating. That's one thing I do like about this particular article, is that it's constantly giving you updates. Um, so that's cool, and definitely take a look at that because hopefully we'll find out more information as the updates come in. But I wanted to focus on Trump's comments where he says in the social media post, he says that the epidemic of violence in this country must end. And when we think about what has been going on since the start of his presidency, I am side eyeing this comment because everything, for the most part, that we have seen happen up until today has been nothing short of some of the most violent things that I've witnessed in my life. And even before he was sworn in, I mean, that campaign trail of his where he allegedly got shot in the ear, right? And it's just fueling this fire of an epidemic that is violence. And so, if we're going to end this epidemic of violence, we have to start looking at ourselves, Trump included, right? If we're going to do that, how are we going to do that, Mr. Trump? When we have seen nothing but violence in this country since actually since the beginning of time, right? We can't even throw it all on Trump. Let's just be completely honest. This country was started by way of violence. We fight wars like it's our job in this country. We perpetuate violence by way of superiority to maintain certain superiorities in this country, right? We manage violence like we would manage just our everyday lives in this country in some ways, right? It has to be priority, right? I gotta have my guns. I can't live without my guns, right? Well, I mean, what if this, and this happens, right? I've gotta have my gun. Guns can't be something that's, not a part of the fabric of America, right? But then we look to other countries and we see how they live and thrive and prosper And guns are not even a part of their everyday lives. Violence to this degree is not even heard of in some countries. And so, I beg to, question what are we doing here in this country? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on? Like, this is it's just an yes, it's another instance where we see how violence does not benefit us. So what are we going to do about this? Seriously, what are we going to do? Are we just going to conduct business as usual? And I hope that's not the case. But in my gut, I feel like, oh, another one. All right, what are we going? Where are we going for dinner? Like it's just like another situation that we will not address. When are we going to address the violence in this country and stop worrying about who is going to be uncomfortable, who's going to feel like, "Oh, you've taken this away, you've taken that away." You don't need crazy amounts of weaponry. You need to be this actual th- these vehicles of potential harm and death need to be managed in a way that just like if we have a car, you're supposed to have a driver's license. You're supposed to be um trained on how to drive. You have to actually go and take a test to drive. Why would we put something as lethal as a gun in any old Joe Schmo's hands and be like, let's hope for the best. Let's see how this works. Like, are you kidding me? I have to, as a nurse and nurse practitioner, ensure that I have, that I am providing the best care possible. And one of those ways of doing that is making sure that I am licensed, that I am certified as a pediatric nurse practitioner. I have to have constant education to, manage my actual certifications. If not, I'm out of here. What is so hard with also doing something like this for folks who want to have guns? And then also limiting, what type of guns should actually be household guns. You know what I'm saying? It's basically the same as prescription medication. Yes, you can go to your local pharmacy and get over the counter medications, but you just can't roll up in there and be like, "Yeah, I need some augmentin. Yeah, I need some fentanyl. Can you just hand that to me over the counter?" No, you need a prescription. You need to be assessed by a physician to determine if you even need that medication. How are people going into just any old regular place picking up, weaponry and just able to just be out here? Like I said, America is the wild, wild west. And this has to stop. It has to stop. And if it doesn't stop, don't come crying when it comes to your door. Because the main people who are sitting here perpetuating and pacifying these folks who want to maintain what we have going on here, you are possibly going to fall victim to these crimes. And I'm not, my thing is too, when we think about folks like Charlie Kirk and all this stuff, when you are in situations where you are upholding having this type of behavior that we have right now, you can potentially fall victim to the same thing that you are allowing. And trust me, I don't condone anything that happened to Charlie Kirk in terms of his death, things of that nature. That is not cool at all. Like that is terrible. But you can't go around doing things like that and then expecting that you're going to come out of it unscathed. You just can't. And that, like I said, there has to be a point where we stand up and say, this is getting out of hand. This is getting out of hand. We need to make some changes. I don't know, America. I don't know what you want, girl, but I know what most people in this country want. They want to be able to live well, to thrive, to be able to walk out of their doors, to go into their places of worship and feel like they're safe, they're supported, and they can return again alive and well. And so it's up to us at this point. Are we going to continue with this buffoonery, or are we going to really stand up and be like, no? Because if we're a true democracy and we are professing that, then we need to stand up and say, this is what we need in this country, and not what these quote unquote leaders are saying we need in this country. Unless the majority does want this wild, wild west, and then we'll just continue to fall down this craziness of the spiral of nonsense that is going to continue to harm and unfortunately kill some people. So it's up to us. It is. It's truly up to us. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to keep playing these reindeer games and act like the prizes that we get from it, we just don't know why this is happening? Oh my gosh, another one. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers are a waste. We need action. We need change. We need gun reform. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Yeah, I don't know, y'all. But I pray that we get to a point where we can have a sound mind and say no more. That I love my brother, I love my sister, I love my non-binary person, individual, sorry. I love everyone. And I want us all to thrive and live well and not be afraid of each other because of whatever issues, or not have hate in our hearts because we've been told a certain narrative about certain people. And so now we have to go in and harm them in some way. And that's always just some type of, physically violent way, but also in ways of, creating these bogus laws and whatever else that will stifle us to live our best lives in this country. We got a lot of work to do, y'all. We got a lot of work to do. So I pray that like I said, I pray that we get to a point where we can see each other as human and not lash out in these ways. That's all I can do is hope and pray that that is something that we do moving forward. I'm going to share this article with y'all in the show notes. I love y'all. Please take care of yourselves. And like I always said, let's just keep on keeping on. And yeah, I will see y'all next week. All right. I love you guys. Bye.